Hey guys, Razorblade Mango here, and today I am joined by the homie Claylex,
Hey,
and I don't often make like full videos on games when we only have maybe like one minute of CG footage, if that, because I don't really count the slow lead into the the footage, and I
yeah,
put footage in quotes because
yeah,
the
cool.
way we're talking about the Dead Space remake, obviously,
Hmm.
and the way they revealed this is pretty much exactly like I expected they would, where it's just a short CG trailer. Shit, we
No
got
gameplay.
no gameplay. We got a longer trailer for another game we're going to talk about later in this discussion called the Callisto Project. I mean, that was a CG
Protocol.
trailer. Protocol, that's right.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I wonder if I have it written as project in my notes. Do I have it as pro? No, I have it as protocol.
You have
Okay,
it in
okay.
protocol in your notes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So, for starters, the reason that we are discussing this is because we have information, like actual solid information on the Dead Space remake that comes directly from the developers and EA themselves. And it's also interesting because of the history of Dead Space and its publisher EA, and also, of course, Visceral, who are funked.
Thanks, EA,
So
for that.
yeah, that like of all the studios that got shut down in, like the previous generations, probably the two that made me like the most sad were Visceral and Pandemic, were like the two. Actually, weren't both of them under EA?
Yeah, they were. They
Oh
were.
god. Okay, so yeah, EA
Oh,
and
yeah.
EA is like notorious for killing studios, and like for me, those two are just like the two most tragic situations where I'm like, why? It's just all that potential just gone down the toilet. Can you imagine what Pandemic could have done with the tech that we have now?
I
What
know we
Visceral could have
already.
done?
I think they were planning on like a battle front free, and we saw concept of it. And was like,
Mm,
hey, this looks pretty good. At
yeah,
least from like, I think it was gonna be like on the PS free Xbox 360. I think.
yeah. It's just it's a damn shame, man. Like it's just sad to think about. But
Yeah.
Dead Space remake.
Yeah.
I made a list of notes and information
Yeah, I
that
have it. I have it on my other monitor, so I
okay.
could see it too. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna read through the full list, and we can kind of briefly touch on each thing one by one
Mhm,
because I'm trying to
mhm.
shoot for like an hour long. Obviously, there's gonna be like editing in case one of us gets interrupted or something like that. But
Yeah.
so to start, this is the information that we have on the Dead Space remake so far. And all right. And obviously it's a remake of the first game. It doesn't
Oh,
involve
yeah,
2
totally,
or 3.
totally.
I've heard though that there may be references to 2 and 3 in this remake, but that's really all I've got as far as
Mm.
2 and 3 are concerned in this remake. It's just the first game. It's developed by EA Motive, who are the studio that was founded by Ubisoft former employee Jade Raymond before she bounced to Google and then bounced out of that to go to Haven Studio, who is now working with PlayStation. And Motive's credits include the campaign for Battlefront 2, which ugh,
Which
not
was
the good
awful,
Battlefront
in my
2, the
opinion.
yeah,
Yeah, the remake one. The
yeah,
remake one.
and also they developed Star Wars Squadrons, which I have still not yet played, even though I have it on my PS5.
I, from what I've heard personally, it's okay. It's
Yeah,
not bad, but if people are like, "Wait a minute, EA didn't fuck around with this," like, and they were like, "Yeah, they didn't apparently."
yeah.
So it's like, it's like you want to get into it, it's up to you, you know.
I'll have to get around to it eventually because I do want to see what they can do with their first like fully developed on their own like fully developed game. Because I mean, as garbage as the campaign was for Battlefront 2, I'm not gonna let that fully cloud my assumptions for how
Judgment.
they're gonna do with this. But anyway, so this remake's gonna be rebuilt from the ground up for next gen only so far, using the Frostbite engine, which I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too.
Yeah.
Like for one thing, I know people said like uh for one thing it's really really hard, or at least I've heard horror stories.
Yeah.
Um
Especially from BioWare.
yeah. Yeah, especially yeah, because BioWare's like this is not meant for an RPG. This engine is not good for RPGs. And it's almost like the exact same horror stories back in 2004 when everyone was trying to like use the source engine. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that,
Yeah.
modernized.
And it will include new lighting effects, no loading screens, and 3D audio.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
that's pretty
it's like it is what it
pretty
is.
normal. May
Yeah.
include cut content, which is interesting. Gameplay tweaks, removed sections that didn't work in the original, and more.
Okay, that one I'm like curious about. What sections didn't
I
work in the
assume
original?
one has the 0G sections, right?
Yeah, I think like that's the only one I can think of
Yeah.
is like the sections where yeah you're in the 0G on the big kind of rock thing and you had to avoid
Yes.
the thing. Maybe yeah,
Yeah,
it
which
was
is
annoying,
annoying.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't bad personally. But if they want to remove it, I guess I wouldn't be too bothered by
Yeah.
it.
If they want to remove that in favor of adding more indoor environments and corridors, I really don't have a problem with it, depending on the content of
Yeah,
the new
depending
stuff, of
on it,
course.
yeah.
And I've read mixed reporting. Now, EA themselves have said that they will not make changes to the characters and story. They've said it themselves in their own little like blog post that's called "Meet the Team Behind the Dead Space remake." But I've heard in other interviews from like IGN and I think The Verge was one of them that said that they might include changes. And these changes, they might be alluding to what I said earlier with including references to 2 and 3, which,
Yeah, I think the
mm,
biggest one that people were trying to debate was like, are they going to give Isaac a voice for this one? Are they going to keep him
yeah.
quiet? And to me, if I was in charge of it, I just keep Isaac quiet because again, like or at least like I mean, I don't mind him in two talking. That's fine, whatever. But in this one, it just kind of, I think it works for Isaac in here.
People involved include, and I'm sorry if I butcher their names, it's Philippe Ducharme, who is the senior producer. Then we have creative director Roman Campos Oriola.
Rolia,
Yeah.
yeah,
And art, yeah, I said I was going to butcher some of these. And art director Mike Yazijian. Yazijian.
Yazian, yeah,
Okay.
Yazian.
Yeah. I don't know who any of these guys are. That's
Unfortunately, yeah,
yeah.
me
I don't.
neither. Oh,
I've
it
heard that
sucks.
I've heard the EA has been kind of wishy washy about the messaging. As like, I don't know if these three are just strictly fans of the original games, or if they actually had a hand in their creation. I don't know, and I've done research on some of them. The only one I could find, I think, was that Felipe Ducharme, and I'm not even sure if it's the same person. But if it is, their credits include some of the Assassin's Creed games. But this was before Dead Space, if they really were involved with it in some capacity. Whether it's QA or one of like the doing like grunt work or something like that. Now, one of the more interesting notes that I have down, which I think is sad and hilarious at the same time, is that they had to stress that no, there will be no microtransactions in this.
Basically, they will not be doing a Dead Space free BS move like they did before, and
Yeah.
yeah, and hopefully, I had a nightmare last night actually
Oh god.
about like I saw you and you were like live services Dead Space 4. I was like no. And
I just
I'd be
go.
scared because I'm like, if EA wanted to, if no one could stop them, they could do it
Oh,
somehow.
they totally
Like some
could.
kind of BS multiplayer Dead Space with live services.
I could honestly, I
Ugh,
could
just, ugh.
honestly picture a Dead Space that has a monetary focus on cosmetics with a Fortnite style rotating item
Oh, yeah,
shop.
totally.
I can totally
Totally.
imagine it because Ubisoft already does that with their single player games. So EA could just easily look at that and go, well, fuck it, might as well put that in Dead Space. It's like, no, don't don't do that. But no microtransactions, which is hilarious that they have to stress that for a survival horror game. And it's sad because that's considered good news that we've come this far where we just kind of expect this garbage to be in games now. Whenever they announce anything, it's like, oh, well, what's the monetization going to be like? But then they have to come out, oh no, there won't be any microtransactions. Not yet, anyway. And this is where
Yeah.
I don't trust EA at all. I don't trust them. They could very easily add in microtransactions because other companies have said, hey, no microtransactions for us, and then they add them a month later. Once the
Yeah.
reviews are out, once the initial sales are done, then they add in the pimping bullshit. I could go on about that all day,
Yeah.
but they have been seeking. This is another interesting thing. They have been seeking feedback from streamers since the beginning of development.
EA, why didn't you hire me? Oh wait, because I just roast you to no end.
I wonder who these streamers are that they're getting feedback from. Like if it's people like Spear Hunter and like gaming like TGBS or Maximilian, like that's fine. Like I don't have a problem with those guys.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, like to add to that, at least like this more of the I hate EA part of me saying it, but I guarantee you it's people that are going down under, if you know what I mean. They'd be like, oh yeah, this is the best. We like this. I'm like, yeah, no, shut up. You're because you want to get that EA money so badly.
Yeah, and I can definitely think of a few off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So
It wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, if I tried to go for it and they wouldn't let me in because they know I would roast their ass and say this game might
they
be
don't
garbage.
want. I think the developer might want brutally honest feedback, but I don't think EA wants brutally honest feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
And it depends
It's
on
always
who
the
is conducting.
publishers.
Yeah, and it depends on who's conducting these feedback surveys or however they're getting their feedback. I don't know if they have some kind of NDA with certain big streamers that they provided feedback to EA and Motive back at like the beginning of like, because I don't even know how long this has been in development. I assume maybe like a couple of years, because we've heard about this for a long time, like this Dead Space remake. Because this has been like people have been beating the drum about this remake for quite a while, especially over on like Grub over on VentureBeat. And the final point that I have for Dead Space remake before we start getting into a broader discussion about it is that there is no release window. We didn't get a date. We didn't get a year.
Which I think is fine.
Yeah.
They can take as much time as they need.
Yeah.
Even though, like, to be honest, the more I keep saying it over the years, the more I'm like, look, even if they take forever and it comes out at a solid time, it still could be crap, but, you know, it's EA.
Yeah.
But other companies have gone through, like, Cyberpunk.
Yeah. So that's all I have as far as notes on the game. Thoughts on this remake and its implications, though. I'm gonna let you lead on this.
I think like the thing with this situation is like I would love a Dead Space remake, but obviously on the other hand, it's EA.
Yeah.
And most, if not all the devs that I want to make this remake are not working at the studio. You know, it's completely so we basically the best we can hope for is that we have to rely on Dead Space fanboys to make this remake, and that they they can add some stuff, like that's fine as long as it like works for it and it's not like overly what I feel is stupid or some other stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they want to cut content, that's fine. And obviously still like it always pissed me off that's like, oh, you get a CG reveal trailer instead of gameplay.
Yeah.
But obviously if we didn't get that trailer, we'd probably have to wait a while, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's EA and other companies. They just want to get people hyped,
It's better than it's better than how Jedi Fallen Order was announced, where they literally had what's her name, that one annoying redhead gamer chick,
the
one that like she went into the audience and literally like put the mic to Vince Zampella and was like, hey, don't you have a game to announce? Nudge, nudge. And he's like, yeah, Respawn's doing a Star Wars game. Here's a JPEG. okay, bye, and that's it. Like at least we got something we can like visually look at. It's still like scraping in the bottom of the barrel in terms of information and actual like content we can look at and dissect, but it's better than the JPEG that Fallen Order got.
Yeah,
Um, I the one thing that I think you brought up that's interesting is this idea of this game being made by fans. I what
I
has
hope it. I
me
do not know if these
yeah
guys are actually.
right
And again, that's another
that's
thing that scares
yeah
me because,
that's what
because these guys
yeah
might just be like, it's just another game we're making. We're not going to put any passion into it. And I'm like,
exactly yeah
it's like, oh, this is what EA does too.
yeah
It's like run of the mill. It's almost like run of the mill steel workers working on this. They don't give a shit about the product. They just want
yeah
to shell it out
yeah
and hope
it's this
people.
concept of is it like actual fans, are they actual fans
Are
remaking
they
this,
lying?
or are they fans in like the blog post PR sense? Because anyone can be a fan like making this. It doesn't take much to play something or watch a piece of past media and go, oh yeah, I liked that, so that makes me a fan of it. Like just look at how you have people that supposedly are fans of Star Wars and Ghostbusters and He-Man and Star Trek, and it's like they just do not understand what makes those properties tick at all. They just don't get it. And yet they're given the keys to the kingdom in terms of making new content for these franchises. And that's what worries me about Dead Space. Is because I wonder if these guys actually understand the meat and potatoes about what makes Dead Space tick. And granted, if they actually are just going to like if they're let's say they're going to use 99% of the content from the original Dead Space. Let's say they
Yeah.
keep some of the zero G stuff in it. And then they'll be okay because that is Dead Space has the advantage of having a very solid foundation at its core thanks to Visceral. And I don't think they're going to dramatically change up the gameplay style like what you see with RE2 going into RE2 remake. I don't think it's going to be like that.
Yeah,
I
I don't think they're going to. It's almost like, okay, explain. It's almost like they're not going to go from like RE4 to like RE6 and make
right.
Isaac the
Yeah.
ultimate badass
Boulder
warrior.
punching. Yeah.
Yeah, which
That
again,
would suck.
it's like Isaac is not supposed to be a soldier. He is
No.
an engineer.
Yeah. He's
Like, and
just a normal
especially
guy.
especially, and again, I do like some of the gravity bits because and I was fine with Dead Space 2 when they changed that because of the advanced suit. But
Mhm.
again, Isaac is wearing just an engineer suit, so he literally is like scrambling, jumping from spot to spot.
Yeah.
Hopefully he could time and these necromorphs don't just behead him while he's jumping.
Right.
And that's supposed to, and it worked because you felt tense.
Yeah. That original game, I the last time I played it was maybe a couple years ago, and I'll probably need to go back and play it again, but I really don't like the PC port. That's the only thing I have it on right now.
No, it's weird. Like I
Yeah,
think for one thing, the mouse control. Well, the mouse is like it's too
it's bad.
fast. I would say, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you move too fast with
it's
that
not
thing
good.
on.
Not a good PC port, but I guess I'll have to find a. It shouldn't be hard, but I'll find a PS3 copy and just play it on my PS3 in the living room.
Yeah,
But I that game is terrifying. Like that game is because you feel weak because Isaac is just a normal person, and he's even more normal when you compare it to somebody like Leon or Ethan from Resident Evil, or he's more in the vein, maybe not the same vein, but he's kind of in the same category as somebody like James from Silent Hill 2, where he's just a normal guy. He's just an everyday, in the case of, in the future
yeah,
perspective, he's a
and
normal
like
everyday person.
yeah, and like the advantage, and at least like the advantage he has, yes. And if people, obviously, if newbies came and said, "Oh, then why can he stomp and do all this other stuff?" Because he has like basically a gun. Well, not a gun. It's a plasma. It's a it's a plasma cutter, and like he's wearing a metallic suit that's gravity tethered boots and all that other stuff. So it does give him. Not saying he's wearing an Iron Man suit, making that clear. Definitely not an Iron Man suit, but it has almost Iron Man like properties. So it
Yes,
gives him
it
some
does.
partial protection.
Yeah.
Without that suit though, yeah, he is he's fucked a lot of the
He would have been
time.
killed by the first enemy.
Yeah, he would have and like he's lucky by Dead Space 2 he's kind of experienced, otherwise he would
Yeah.
have been dead in the first
He
sequence.
basically becomes like what Leon is in RE4 in Dead Space 2.
Yeah, he gets experience.
Mm-hmm.
Though in this case Isaac was like stuck on ice Captain America style and then
Yeah.
he got revived later. It's kind of a weird story like that, but it's actually really good in Dead Space's thing.
Mm-hmm. So,
Because it
oh,
reminds. Oh, sorry to
no, no,
interrupt
no,
you,
you're good.
but it's like it got like it's exactly like Alien, where it's like they don't give a shit about Isaac or any of those people. They want to use the aliens and the marker as like a political state of power, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like what Ripley's Alien was like too. They wanted to use the xenomorphs as a weapon to kind of like make money, profit, and war and all that.
Mm-hmm. But I think the reason I'm a lot more skeptical about this remake than I probably should be, because my
I was
knee,
always skeptical.
yeah, my knee jerk reaction to seeing that trailer was like, yeah, I'm in. I want more Dead Space, and yeah, like even thinking with my reservations, I am in. I want to give it a try because it's Dead Space. Like I would like more horror, more big AAA horror is something I've always advocated for. Not AAA in the sense of like live service garbage and pimped out with microtransactions.
I stand with you.
I mean like a classic horror experience that has the budget and look of a AAA game. We don't get a lot of those beyond Resident Evil and hopefully maybe if Silent Hill ever comes back. But Dead Space is one of the very few that we're going to get. So yeah, I am interested, but it's kind of like you said, which is a good comparison. It's monkey's paw and double-edged sword mean two different things, but monkey's paw is a good analogy because I don't exactly have faith in EA motive. I would have more faith, and even though I'm not outside of Titanfall 2, I'm not particularly fond of them. I would have more trust in Respawn doing it because Respawn knows how to make shooting feel good. And they know how to make I know they know how to make a good single player campaign
Oh
if they
yeah,
wanted to add new content
yeah,
in.
totally.
If it's the same people from
If they
Titanfall 2, of
really did
course.
though, I don't. I'd be curious to know how they would handle a horror game project
That would be
because they've done,
awesome.
yeah, they've done again, they've done sci-fi,
Hmm.
and of course they did like space opera, sci-fi with Star Wars. So them going the horror route would be very
Yeah,
interesting
I could
for
totally see
them.
them. Like they're like I don't really like most of the games they make, unfortunately, but the talent is there for Respawn, and
Yeah,
I would have
totally.
trust in them if they were involved in this. But it's Motive who were behind the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which was awful. I don't know if you ever played that, but it was
I was
just
like
bad.
I literally took one look at it even before it came out. I'm like, this ain't gonna work. And
Yeah.
like a genie granting a wish, I was like, yeah, I told you this game was gonna fucking blow.
Mhm.
And like that protagonist, especially for Battlefront 2, was awful. And I'm like, again, I don't want to go off topic, but it's like they took Finn, but somehow made him unlikable.
Yeah.
That's what I felt with this protagonist. And it's funny too, it feels like they just ripped that off. It's like a rip off of Star Wars episode 7, but somehow taking place like around episode I think after episode 6.
And the other reason I'm a lot more like I don't know about skeptical, but mm, about it is because of EA's history with the past developer of Dead Space, the creator of Dead Space themselves, Visceral, who of course Visceral they were known for a lot of the I think they made a lot of the like James Bond games from back in the day and some
Yeah,
of the
yeah, I
Lord of the
believe
Rings
so.
games. I think they did Third
Hmm.
Age. I think that was them before they were named Visceral. I think weren't they called like EA Redwood Shores. There we go. They
Yeah.
were called
Hmm.
that back in the day. But then when Dead Space came out, they kind of like finally established their own kind of identity as a studio. And then EA proceeded to take Dead Space and go, we need to make this the next multi-billion-dollar franchise. And I'm like, no, you don't. Just budget it and market it smartly and then make money. It may not make all of the money in the world, but it will make money.
It's like,
And
oh my
and then they
god,
just
yeah.
and then they just went
That
off
pisses
the
me off.
yeah, and then they just went off the deep end with the marketing and the budgeting. And even though Dead Space 2 is a great game, that's my
It
favorite out of the
is.
three.
Like it to me it fixed like some issues I had with the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's to me I would argue the fact that yes, it is a little more actiony, a
Yeah.
little less horror than the
Sure.
first game, but it does still hit those horror vibes I absolutely still love about Dead
Yeah.
Space. And then I think what you were gonna say, and then they completely blew it out of proportion with Dead Space 3, where it's basically, hey,
Yeah.
can we just rip out all the horror out? And then they're like, no, you can't. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, sorry, we're going to. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Can we turn it into a co-op shooter with
With
paid
one of the, and
microtransaction
I
based
keep,
ammo
I will go off again with one of the worst
crafting?
dual protagonists out there that tries to make Isaac look like a jackass when really he's the guy that's supposed to, be the
Yeah.
protagonist and not.
Ay, ay, ay.
Oh God, yeah, Carter. I think he was.
Yeah.
Carter is the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen.
That was during like the double whammy time of like the rise of live service stuff. That was like the seed that would grow into the gross sickening tree of live services. And it was also released around the time where everything had to have co-op in it because these companies like were obsessed with it because they thought they would make more sales on their games if they
Yeah.
had co-op in it. And it's like,
The
no, not
yeah.
not a survival horror game. No. Like,
The
ugh.
last two I remember in that day and age was like Army of Two and Kane and Lynch, and I was like,
Well,
Kane and
those
Lynch was
made
fucking off.
sense. Those
Yeah,
made sense though.
that game was awful, but I know
Yeah.
Army of Two at least was decently okay. My bro was obsessed with that game. He loved it.
And with Dead Space, this new one, it's like EA like cuz and to be fair, the most of the management that was involved with EA back in 2013 is not, I don't think they're in charge of the company anymore. I don't know when Andrew Wilson started, but I know that some of the bigger people at EA are like newer with maybe like 5-6 years of tenure or something like that.
Yeah.
And the reason this just kind of bothers me is because EA basically sent out Dead Space to die. And they marketed it way too much, spent way too much money on ridiculous marketing stuff, and it's Dead Space 2 is literally one of the most expensive games ever made, and it was still considered a financial disappointment for EA at the time. And then Dead Space 3 comes out, and they're like, oh, we didn't make our money back on Dead Space 2, so let's just break the bones of what this game is meant to be, and let's just make it practically a live. It practically is a live service. Like it practically
Yeah.
that's like patient zero as far as I'm concerned. The of live
Because like
services.
yeah, you could see like if you played it normally, like Isaac or Carter, whichever is like their weapons and armor are like kind of like, huh, that's weird. I feel kind of weak. And then obviously it does that stupid ass factor where,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can upgrade, but it's like kind of nudging you to buy, like, okay, you could buy it normally. That's all good, like in-game currency and all that. That's all good. But then obviously EA has to push in their bullshit where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you pay IRL money, you can upgrade so much faster and get so much
Oh,
stronger. And
it's
I'm like,
ridiculous.
I'm like, that is not. You can't do that in a survival horror.
Yeah.
Survival. horror.
It
It's there in the fucking
yeah.
title, you
It's
idiots.
quite literally pay to win. Like that, it's not even an exaggeration to say that
Like, what if I
Dead
spend
Space 3.
$100 and become the most OP motherfucker in a survival horror game?
Yeah.
What is the point?
Yeah, that's like if
Because
Resident
the
Evil start.
tens.
It's like if Resident Evil started selling out ammo and herbs for anyone to buy. Like any asshole can just play it, and it would be like, yeah,
Like any person can become OP in a survival horror game. I can understand that, but that's because they know the ins and outs and they played it multiple times. And then those companies get their money. But again, it's not because some bullshit microtransactions. It's because they had fun experimenting with the game. That's how you make a game.
mm-hmm.
It's not like you're trying to cheat the system. Well, that's like what EA was trying to do.
It's not like, and I've said this a billion times. It's no company makes something and then doesn't want you to buy it. Like they very obviously were trying to push people to spend money on their microtransaction shop in Dead Space 3. But it still did not make them the money they were looking for. Even after all that bullshit, it still failed to meet EA's expectations. So then they basically just were like, Dead Space is done. What did they do? Did they go back to the drawing board and try to maybe reasonably budget the game and reasonably market it? Nope, they just canceled it. Canceled 4. Made Visceral work on the boring ass Battlefield hardline. And then in the meantime too, they were working on Dante's Inferno, which is I'm not crazy about it, but I think it's underrated.
Yeah, it's an underrated game. It wasn't
Yeah,
bad. And then I think and then continue what you said. I think after that they saw how much of how well a hard line like beep. What happened
yeah.
with hardline? They were like, "You're done," and then Vistas crossed their arms and be like, "Oh yeah, like we wanted to work on that bullshit game, yeah," and then give them the middle finger, be like, "Fine, fire us. We don't give a shit. We're done with you anyway."
Well, that's what
Yeah.
actually happened. What happened was then I don't know if you remember, they were working on that Star Wars game.
Yeah, they were. And then
Yeah,
and then again, EA
and
was like, "No, you're not working on it anymore. You're
well,
done."
I from what I've read, the alleged story is that that game never really got off the ground because it was a mix of creative discrepancy between Visceral and Amy Hennig, who of course is famous for creating Uncharted for PlayStation.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic
Yeah,
writer. I'll do say so
yeah.
myself.
And it just didn't really click between the team and her. And there's also the problem with trying to get the okay from Lucasfilm on every tiny little thing. So there's always that. There's always that hurdle when working with Lucasfilm or Marvel or anything like that. And then EA, this is where EA does need to take some
That's what
culpability, is
EA
that
does.
they according to people that were privy to the meetings, they were like, I think one of them, it's like I'm kind of like, I'm not hard
Yeah,
quoting
yeah.
this, but one of the executives said, FIFA makes us $1 billion a year. What is your answer to that for Star Wars? And it's like that kind of mindset, that is exactly why
Why people
EA
fucking hate your
sucks.
guts.
Yeah, why
It's
people don't like you is because not every game needs to be this $1 billion idea. Like it Takes Two, and I think we can both agree, is a fantastic game. It is wonderful. And yet, I don't think any person should reasonably look at that and go, yes, this will be so good that it will make us $1 billion. That just
yeah,
it
it's
just
like
does not
it's
happen.
yeah. To me, obviously, we said it. To me, when I say it takes two, it takes it takes two factors to make a game. Actually, it's
Mm.
like passion. Like I think, yeah, passion and effort. And then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, and people say, like, what about the money? It's like money's good, but obviously, if they let that money, like EA thinks it is, if they keep letting the money and profits cloud their judgments,
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, you guys don't deserve to be a gaming publisher.
Yeah.
Because that's all you do. All you care about is fucking money.
And I don't
Um,
mind a company worrying about finances, but you can worry about finances without being a short-sighted dick about it.
I know. It's exactly.
So, then unfortunately, the Star Wars game from Visceral got canceled, And Visceral joined the long list of studios that EA has killed. And this leads us into the Callisto Protocol, which is interesting because this is another case where, to me, this reminds me a lot of like the Mighty Number 9 situation, where you have Keiji Inafune going away from Capcom because they're not treating Mega Man very well. So he's like, well, fuck you guys, I'll make my own Mega Man with blackjack and hookers. And then he makes Mighty Number 9 and it sucks. Like, it's one of the worst games I've ever played.
I feel like I was like totally shocked because I was like, but hey, this has happened before where game devs think, and it happens. You can't, you're not Superman. You can't do everything right. Someday you may fuck up, like especially with again, Ukulele. We all thought that was going to be good, and look what happened to that. I still don't understand how they fucked that game up, but regardless, yeah, I know. It's like but with the Callisto Protocol, sorry, it's
so you're doing it too.
Yeah. And we keep calling it. It just sounds like a better name in my
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue better.
Yeah. To me, it's like, what is it? If I just said my piece real quick about it, it's like, but we'll get into it later. It's like the name's good. Obviously, we know that like one of the co-developers of Dead Space is working on it, which is like, oh, and I like the guy. He's really, really cool. He knows the ins and outs of horror, and I think he's a huge, obviously, The Thing fan. So again,
yeah,
because obviously we see that shit in Dead Space too, and I could see that in Callisto Protocol, and but I'll let you take it away with the info, and then we'll go more into that detail.
Yeah, this is a new game. It was announced during the Game Awards, I think, last year. Was it?
Yeah, I can't remember if that was actually good or bad. It was long.
No, it was. I mean, the show itself was terrible, but that was one of the few announcements that's like, okay. But the problem is they released that edited version of the trailer during it, and there's a red band trailer of it that exists where you see like the gore, like the tentacles go into the guy's eye socket and all that, which is definitely it's a better trailer just because it doesn't censor it for whatever reason on the Game Awards, even though the Game Awards shows M-rated games. I don't know. But, alright, so this is the info on the Callisto Protocol. So it's a new story-driven single-player survival horror IP that's set within a prison colony, which is cool, on Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons. It's developed by Striking Distance Studios and published by Krafton. Striking Distance is led by Glen Schofield, who is the man who co-created and executive produced Dead Space and co-founded Sledgehammer Games, who of course are one of the Call of Duty factory developers at Activision.
Yeah, in which case they made their
World
first
War
game
II.
was
Advanced
Warfare.
Advanced Warfare, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then they made World War II, and then they're doing their new one this year, whatever that's going to be. I don't care. Then the publisher is Krafton. Now, this is a case that's a little... it's a little, like, morally iffy, because Krafton is the publisher behind PUBG. And it's also worth mentioning that Tencent, which is the Chinese like giant conglomerate tech company, is the second largest stakeholder in the company. Which I'm growing more and more iffy about, like weary, considering all the stuff we know about China. So I just felt like that was relevant information for people who are like, I'm not supporting anything like Tencent related. So just know that if you're buying the Callisto Protocol, just know, if you're buying it new or digital, if you're buying it used, fine, that's fine. They're not going to get a single penny of that. But
yeah, but if you're buying it new or like probably from Steam or whatever, it's like I hate to say, and it's the truth, you're kind of supporting Tencent
a little. Yeah, you're putting money in their pocket, which to be fair, I think all of us can admit that we've done this at some point or another.
Yeah.
We've put money in Tencent's pocket. It's like unavoidable if you've been like gaming for as long as we have. Like I will be the first to admit that I bought Kingdom Hearts 3 on the Epic Game Store. Tencent is a stakeholder in Epic. Tencent now like fully owns Sumo Digital, and Sumo Digital are the developers behind Sackboy, which I think is a really good game, but just they own 100% of Riot, which thank God I've never played League of Legends.
Yeah, it's shit.
But just that's something that's I felt like needed to be mentioned, just because with Tencent worryingly becoming more and more big in the American gaming scene, the Western gaming scene. So
I
it's
think like the next bullet point, I was gonna say it myself, and this actually made me so mad I had to go offline for a couple hours. Was like the whole like, oh, this is going to be set in PUBG, and I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
It's
Like
weird.
maybe what is it? Maybe Glen Schofield was trying to play the smart game and say, oh, it takes place all the way in the future, so we're not even gonna mention PUBG. Maybe that's the golden goose situation, right? But even just mentioning that, I don't know if he mentioned it or somebody else said it, but yeah, like hearing that was like it's so dumb because and to me I feel like for this point, Glenn and his team had to do it for some reason. Otherwise, be like, yeah, no, it's not set in our universe. It's not gonna put count. And I'm like, that is so fucking dumb.
It's if it's a way, like if there are like minor references to PUBG, like if there's a frying pan somewhere as like a joke, that's one thing. But
That's
if there's
fine,
like
yeah.
lore tie-ins, but it's set like I don't know how they can tie this to PUBG. It's set like centuries in the future.
I know, right?
I don't get
I'm
it.
like, yeah.
So I just think that was a way for him to secure financing from
Exactly.
Krafton.
Yeah, exactly.
So among others working on the game include Steve, and again, I'm so sorry if I butcher your name if you're watching this. Steve
I want to hear this.
Papoutsis?
Yeah, you got it.
I think I did that okay. Steve Papoutsis, who also co-developed the Dead Space series and led the series.
Another guy working with Dead Space onto this too. So that's kind of a little bit on the okay scale.
We're not even done yet with the Dead Space veterans.
Dead Space crew.
Scott Whitney, who is a designer on Dead Space series, and Christopher Stone, who is the animation director for the former series. Of the 150 employees of Striking Distance, Schofield said that about 25 to 30 former coworkers from Visceral and Sledgehammer are part of Striking Distance working on the Callisto Protocol. And unlike Dead Space Remake, we actually have a window for this, a release window, which is going to be released in 2022. So next year.
Oh, okay. That one I didn't know. I didn't know that one. But if we expanded on this again, like I said, it's a monkey paw situation for me. Honestly, if someone told me if I had to choose one of these right now to pick, and like it was kind of what I wanted, I'd choose the Callisto Protocol, but only because I really like Glenn. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah, he is.
A lot of his old crew are really, really cool, and I just feel like, to me at least, there's definitely passion. Maybe there's some forced kind of thing, because again, this shit with PUBG and Tencent and all that. But like, on the other hand, I'd really, really want to support this other than freaking Dead Space Remake, which again, I'm like, I don't know. At least like I could kind of feel the passion in this game other than Dead Space Remake. That's why I would want to get this over that game, you know?
It's, for me, like, the interesting, and you're absolutely right about Schofield being well-liked in the industry. That, like, he's so well-liked that even, like, the normal, annoying, like, game devs and game writers and all those people on Twitter,
they're like, yeah, we like you too.
They liked him, and they liked him enough to defend him when Kotaku wrote some like smarmy article about him a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
like it was that fucking hack. What's his name? Ian Walker at Kotaku. Who who always is the one that writes like the worst shit there, and he wrote some like smarmy, cringy bullshit. He like wrote some smarmy piece about how Glen Schofield, like he was implying that Schofield didn't work very hard when it came to making the Call of Duty games at Sledgehammer. And I'm like, fuck you. And even like the people in the industry that I know would like rally around Kotaku, like, yeah, in most cases, even they were like, nah, dude, that's a horrible take. Like, don't
Like
don't
just because
don't
yeah,
hit
just
Glenn
because he
like
did
that.
Dead Space doesn't mean he didn't work his ass off to try a new game,
Yeah.
like with Call of Duty.
Yeah. So I trust his involvement. Hopefully, and here's the thing, with you could throw as much money as something as you want, but you can't buy talent. And what
Yeah,
matters is that
exactly.
if they have the right people involved. I mean, just look at, like you brought up earlier, Ukulele. Like Ukulele was made by former Rare people. And yet, even though that was like very successfully crowdfunded, it fucking sucked. Like, at least in my opinion, it sucked. So
Yeah.
they just didn't have the talent. They didn't have the knack for it. They screwed up in some way. So the people are there. What concerns me about this is whether or not, and you just gotta look at PUBG with that budget they have in the art style, the ugly ass look of it. Whether or not Krafton, I know Tencent does, but whether or not Krafton has the means of funding something that's actually going to look as good as that CG trailer they debuted
Yeah,
for.
and I did have to call that out too, unfortunately. That again, they spent their money on an over glorified CGI trailer,
Yeah.
and I imagine I think I almost messaged Glenn saying that I hope that like they didn't fuck you over with that trailer, man. Because you now like you got some idiots out there expecting you to make that, and Glenn to be a lot. And I'm not saying Glenn do it, but I would imagine Glenn be like, "Yeah, man, I'll try my best," because I'd be the same thing, I'd be kind of mad at them. I'd be like, and now they're gonna expect us to make that at that quality. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, we could in the future, but me, I'm like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. I like that it's set in a prison colony. That's a great location for a horror
Yeah.
game. Like, you just
And,
have to
and
look
I
at the.
know, yeah, and the cool thing too. Sorry to interrupt you
No, you're
again.
good.
It's like the cool thing is that yes, we will be getting the Oh man, a rig. Yeah, the rig type system. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's okay, even though because technically, yeah, Glenn and his team they came up with it first, but I don't know how that works copyright wise.
As long as
With
they make it different enough, I think it would be okay.
Yeah, but I know for a fact that like Glenn said that like we're going to make a rig-esque system. So yeah, your health will be in game. It will not be like on some weird menu or anything of
Mm-hmm.
that kind of sort. So that'll
Yeah.
be cool to see again.
Yeah, I've always really liked that type of integration into where you're not constantly looking at the side of the screen for like a health bar or something. And not that that's bad in most cases. It's just I think it's cool that you actually get to see it
Yeah,
on
it's
Isaac's
always
back.
Yeah, it's always like a nice quality of life type thing. Same thing with like the first game too. It's like again, you don't need to go to a menu to see how much ammo you have. The game automatically tells you when you put your sight line on. And
Hmm.
I was if again it was like with Glenn. I'm like, you blew my mind. I'm like, that's fucking innovative. Because I've never seen that. At least
It's
back
smart. It's
then.
smart game design. The other thing that I have hope for this game is because I like the ambiance that it's going for. I mean, obviously the CG trailer is not going to reflect the game itself, but I like that it's got this very like grimy industrial kind of look to it. It looks very like nightmarish just in that CG trailer where they've got the ambiance right in that CG trailer. Whether or
Yeah,
not that's going to translate over to the game is it something else entirely. But I like the what I'm seeing so far as proof of concept. And the weird thing is it reminds me a lot of the prison section in
Resident Evil 8.
no in Outlast when you're in the shower and you have to like run away
Oh,
from those twins and
oh,
you're just like
right.
fully exposed and it's like nightmarish going through that section and I can only imagine like what could happen with a bunch of infected prisoners and like that's the whole game where you're going through a prison colony Like to me, that just screams potential. It just sounds so cool on paper. More, and I really like Dead Space, but to me that is more interesting than a ship that's just like an engineering kind of ship.
Yeah, it's always I always liked it. Yeah, because remember, like, yeah, Dead Space was like it was like a giant. It was more like a mining colony ship
Mm-hmm.
than almost than like a ship
Mining
made for
colony,
people
that's
to
right.
live in.
Yeah.
You know, it was like really huge. And then obviously they went to that snow planet, and then like I think that was it. But yeah, them going on a prison colony is a really great idea. Because we need more like because yeah, obviously like in horror games from the 90s to now, we've like pretty much like I'm not saying we've gone through all locations, but like I always yeah, I think like one of my favorite like underrated concepts is you being in a prison and having to survive to get out. It's not because like normal prison stuff, it's because there is a unknown force coming in there and then you yourself have to get out. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to die. Not of old age, not of execution, but that actually like it reminds me, the suffering did that, and it was kind of like
Oh
a
yeah, that's another
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's like, dude, I'm telling you, it was almost like if Silent Hill met a prison motive, because it's kind of like
Yeah.
yeah, your own worst demons are coming out, and then
Mm-hmm.
like these monsters are
Mm-hmm.
based off of real life executions, like hangings or poison, you know, by poisons,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really good, you know, like
Yeah.
it really worked,
That's another
you
game.
know.
That's another series I wish they would bring back at some point. Like I can
Yeah, I played
imagine
the
a
first. I
modern
played the first and
sufferings.
second one.
Oh,
It's like it's out of this world. I really love the concept of it. You know, they
it's
could
just
do it with
such
a
a
new
unique
protagonist and
idea.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's such so yeah, like you said, it's so unique. It's such a cool idea. You know.
yeah. So that's really all we've got on both of these projects so far.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I. How much do you want to bet Callisto Project or sorry, Callisto Protocol is going to get delayed to 2023? How much do you want to bet?
I actually have two theories. It's either going to be delayed or there might be some in the future, some arguments happening between Glenn's team and them, saying like, you know, that's just my opinion. It's like, oh, they obviously they want to put this shit in, and Glenn's like,
Oh,
no, yeah, no, we're not,
they're trying to
no,
force the whole PUBG garbage into it.
yeah, that's yep, exactly,
Okay, okay.
exactly. Again, that's what I think. I don't know if they do get canceled because of this. Then it's like,
Yeah,
fuck it, I don't care. As long as like, because again, you can't force this on developers. They still have a right, no matter how much money you give them.
yeah. Has
You know?
Krafton ever published anything that wasn't a live service or like an MMO or something like that? I don't think they have. Like
I don't
I'm
think
looking
so
at the
either.
list of known things, and all I'm seeing is just PUBG and it's another MMO. They've done like two
Yeah.
MMOs, Terra and Alien. Yeah, this is going to be their first single player game.
Yeah. And I
So,
kept saying, I hope they don't fuck it
yeah,
up.
that's
I'm just
yeah.
saying, hopeful.
I
You
don't.
know?
Can you imagine the irony? And this would actually it would be sad, but it would make me laugh if EA was the one that didn't put live service stuff and microtransaction garbage into the Dead Space remake, but Krafton shoves it into the Callisto Protocol, and
And then like
this was meant
Glenn
to
and
be
his
the
team are like, what the
savior.
fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like a remake Dead Space 3. Ah,
Well,
it's just like.
it's like a remake of Dead Space in like with the 2012 mindset of EA,
Yeah, which is like,
which is
oh, it's like
bizarre.
disgusting.
Yeah, I just hope they don't screw this up, and especially with like Tencent's involvement, which but it's it has potential. Both of these have promise, but it's too early to tell whether or not what we're going to get actually seems cool. We're basing this whole podcast on just like two CG
Theories.
trailers, which
Yeah,
very
it's all
rarely doesn't
theories right
which
now.
very rarely doesn't happen, but we are this is a case where we do have more to talk about than usual, especially with EA's history with Dead Space and the Callisto Protocol, sharing key people from that franchise and stuff like that. It's just And this whole idea, by the way, was Claylex's to do this podcast. So,
Yeah,
and it's a really good
yeah,
idea, and I want to thank you for coming up with this idea because
yeah, because
it's
we were
cool.
just like kind of shooting the shit on Twitter, and we were like, oh, it's like, oh, we were talking about it, and we were like, oh, what if we do this, you know?
Yeah,
Because I just had it in my head, I kept thinking, oh, Monkey's Paw situation
yeah,
with Dead Space's remake and Callisto Protocol, and I'm like, oh, we could talk about this, you
yeah.
know?
There's a lot to there's a surprising amount to talk about from two CG trailers. So
Mainly because, like you said, mainly because these two like studios and obviously publishers and all these other studios, it's like they got a lot of background
yeah,
on them, and that's why we're basing our theories on basically their records
yeah.
of what's going to happen. You know?
The two series share a lot of DNA, both like concept wise, visually, staff wise. There's just they're like almost one and the same, but we'll see if there's any like big differences between the two as far as
Yeah,
gameplay. Because they Glenn has been pretty open that Callisto is a very like clear like spiritual successor to Dead Space. He hasn't been hiding that, which I don't think he should, because it's very obvious that it's a
yeah.
spiritual successor
Like
to Dead Space.
yeah, I don't care if it's shot for shot as long as it has
Yeah,
Glenn's passion and effort,
yeah.
and it doesn't. Again,
And it doesn't
it doesn't
suck.
get fucked. Yeah, it doesn't suck, and it doesn't get fucked over
Yeah,
by Kraft and anyone else. You know,
yeah. That's we can only hope. We won't have to find out too long though, thankfully, because it's coming next year. If they manage to keep with
if it
that
comes
release
next
date.
year and doesn't get
Yeah,
delayed.
which I'm going to assume that it's going to get delayed, but time will tell.
Yep.
That's all I've got for today. Did you have any closing thoughts, Clayx, before I let you go?
It's like all I'm hoping is like we get another horror game that's just as good, if not better, than Resident Evil 8. If not, then
Yeah,
like I'll go back to Resident Evil 8, have a
yeah.
good time, you know, enjoy Ethan and his good endeavors, you know, till the
Enjoy
very end.
Lady D
Yeah, and
and
then crying a
Beneviento,
river at the end again.
or crying a river for a different reason during the dollhouse.
Yeah. Cry tears
Tears
of
of
sadness and tears of like don't kill me, please.
tears of fear.
Yeah. That should be
um,
the new game, Tears of Fear.
Tears of Fear. That should be the subtitle for the next Resident Evil. Tears of Fear.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Thank you so much, Claylex, as always, for coming. Make sure to check out Claylex's Patreon. Make sure to check out his Twitch. He's doing a comic book. Please go and check that out. I'll include a link
Yep.
for everything in the description box below. And thank you again, man, for
No
coming
problem.
by. All right. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the topics we discussed today. And yeah, catch you all later. Bye.